In this video, we're going to go from prompt to MCP server without writing a line of code and using the MCP server that we create. If you're an AI PM and you're thinking about or using MCP servers, or if you're a vibe coder or indie hacker and you want to create an MCP server to monetize it, then this video is for you. Let's jump in. We're going to be using Memex for this entire example. And Memex is unique because you can go from prompt to MCP server very quickly, but it's also an MCP client. So you can use any MCP server just like you would with something like Claude Desktop. It also can configure itself to use MCP servers, which makes for a really nice experience where you can build and then it can start using the tool it's just built, test it, see if it's working correctly, and if not, it can debug itself and fix it for you. So it makes the whole prototyping and development experience really seamless. You can see I have a number of tools here, but there's only one that I'm using in this example, which is HT-MCP. So what's the MCP server we're going to create today? Well, in the spirit of making this more an AI PM focused video, we're going to take a very real problem that we have in our product Memex right now, and we're going to try and improve it using an MCP server. So quick context on the problem. We have these templates in Memex, like a template to help you build an Android app, a template to help you create MCP servers, or this one, create a beautiful React website. There's 1,500 lines of prompting that we have in this template to help you get to beautiful websites every time you use it. But a lot of our users come in and don't select the template. They just type right here into the main input bar, which makes sense, and it will create a website for them, but it's not going to have all of that styling and all of the thought and attention we put into creating this particular template. So what I want to do is experiment with creating an MCP server that fetches all of the template information when the user prompts and says, oh, is there any template that I could use as a starting point here to help get the user to a better outcome much faster? So that's the framing of the problem we're trying to solve in this prototype. And what we want to do is test the ergonomics of that idea and see if it's a useful feature idea. Once again, we're not going to be writing any code. It's going to do all of the heavy lifting for us. What we'll do to start is point it to the existing app, ask it to study it, and then ask it to create an MCP version of the same app implementation behind this code. So here we go. All right, so we've written the prompt here. I'm asking it to study the concept of templates in our code base, and then asking it to create an MCP version of it that can specifically list the templates, get metadata for each one individually, and also clone a template into a specified directory. So we're going to give this prompt to Memex and let it get to work. First, it's probably going to have to do quite a lot of work just studying the code base, and then from there we'll get started on the MCP implementation side. All right, so it's finished going through and studying the implementation. We can take a look a little bit at what it did. First, it started by just listing the directory here. Then it went on to looking at some of the key implementation files. It narrowed into them very quickly by doing some find commands for keywords I mentioned in the prompt. And then it read through that. It found documentation about how it's implemented and continued to read through in very targeted searches. So it came up with a scope here and proposed the server functions. One is to list, get, clone, and also search templates, which actually the search isn't one that I gave it, but it decided that would be a relevant one to include, because if we are going to take in a user prompt and quickly decipher whether or not there's a template that can help them get to value, search probably is quite useful actually. So now it's moved on to actually implementing it. And if we want to look at the implementation it's doing, we can always come over here and see the code base that it's created. So here you can see that it's created a server.py file and it's using fast MCP and getting to work implementing it. You don't necessarily need to understand any of this code. If you are technical and you're a developer, then you can look at the code and reference it. And if you're not, you can also just let it do its work. Now, it went through and implemented, and you can see it configured itself now to add the MCP server. In fact, if we look here in the MCP tab, you can see it's been added and it's got these tools available to it. List universe templates, get template details, search templates, clone template, check direct status, which is great. Now, one caveat that oftentimes if it's a more complex MCP server, which this one did have to go through and understand a full code base really to try and understand how to encapsulate the logic as an MCP server, it's likely that on the first try it's going to try it and then there might be some issues with it. But the thing about Memex is that it's configured itself to use it, and now it can test it. So it's trying out some of the tools. Let's see, it listed the tools, it used one of them and said, no templates found. Well, we know there are some templates, so that seems fishy. It tried this one, checking the directory status, and that one seems like it's working. Okay. It's trying search templates, none available. So there's likely some issues, but let's see what Memex does. Okay, so it's realizing that the endpoint it's using is returning a 404. So it's diagnosed it has the incorrect issue. Okay, so now let's see, list universe templates, and it found universe templates. Cool, it seems like it just found 3. We should double check to make sure that the logic is correct. It should be more than 3. Oh, okay, so now it's searching and it's finding 2 relevant ones for React. Perfect. It's gonna try cloning a template. Beautiful React website. That's the one we want users creating beautiful websites to use. So let's see, where did this clone to? So it cloned it into this directory. Okay, cool. Here we go. Okay, so now it's the real test. Can we actually use the MCP server, pull the correct template in? So I'm gonna check here. Yeah, we still have our MCP server enabled. And in this case, I'm going to give it a more specific prompt, tell it to use the specific template I want, because we haven't really invested in making the search experience better. We haven't enriched the templates with enough metadata, I don't think. So we'll be a little bit explicit just to see if this can work. Create a landing page using the Create Beautiful React Website template that's available in your universe templates. Make sure to read and study the template before beginning your implementation. I want the landing page to be an Airbnb clone. All right, so now it's going to try and use the MCP server to pull in the right template to create an Airbnb clone for us, and let's see how this turns out. Okay, let's see which one it selected. Beautiful React website. It's perfect. That's what we wanted. All right, so now it's cloning it. Let's see if this works. Okay, so it looks like perfect. It's cloned it here into a subdirectory of our project. We're off to a good start. It's picking up the prompting here, which is quite a lot of lines of prompting, as you can see. That's good. That's what we want it to do. Okay, so it finished making the Airbnb clone, and it used the template that it pulled using the MCP server. So let's take a look at it and see if it worked. If it didn't work, it's probably going to look like a rudimentary website. If it did work, it'll look probably pretty similar to Airbnb because it's got really good prompting to make beautiful websites. So let's see. Nice. Okay, so this looks like it worked well. It's missing a stock image, but otherwise it looks great. Okay, so this really validates the concept. To wrap this up, we just created an MCP server using just natural language. It coded it for us, iteratively debugged it, and configured itself to use it in Memex. Then we used that MCP server to validate the ergonomics of it by having it create a website with us without having to start from a template. So that's all pretty cool. If you have an idea for an MCP server or want to prototype one, Memex is the best way to do it. So go try it out today. Can't wait to see what you build.